Hi, I'm Kimiko Moore, and welcome to the 2021 Jerome Rohwer Virtual Pilgrimage. This year, we decided to do virtual pilgrimage because it's still not quite safe enough to travel. Maybe next year we'll be able to meet in person. This year, I put together some programming that I think you'll find really interesting. We have documentaries, we have some educational sessions, and we're going to have some live sessions April 10th and 11th that I think will be really engaging. So I hope that you join us for the live program. A lot of people ask me why I chose to put on the Jerome Rohwer pilgrimage since my family was not incarcerated in Arkansas. My family was actually in Topaz, Utah during the war. But it is because of my friend Frank Inami, who I met several years ago, and Frank's family was incarcerated in both camps. And he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. So every time I do a pilgrimage, I dedicate it to Frank's memory. This year would have been a really special year because Frank would have turned 100 this month. And so I just want to share some clips from interviews that we did with Frank several years ago.
My name is Frank Kaoru Inami. Kaoru is my middle Japanese name, which I rarely use. And I was born in a place called Madera, California, which is right in the geographical center of California. I was born 1921, so Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 1941, and so I was 20, born 1921. I was at the Japanese Students Club in Berkeley at the University of California. Since we're not allowed to join fraternities, we're not allowed to join sororities, so we had our own Japanese Students Club. And then for social purposes, the Japanese Women's Student Club was a few blocks down the line. And so I happened to be at the Japanese Students Club at about 11 o'clock in the morning, December 7th. I was passing out. It was on a Sunday, and I was an assistant house manager, and therefore my job was to do all the dirty work, such as passing out sheets, bedding sheets, and things like that. And I was running. It's a three-story building, so I was running up and down, passing out these sheets, and somebody hollered, "Hey, Pearl Harbor has been bombed." Nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was. So it was of course, quite a shock to us. Most of us, there were a few that stayed and moved with Berkeley, but most of us went home. In fact, it's ironic that I left on my birthday, which is April 25th. I had to send a form letter to my dad in Madera and have him sign the letter which says he authorizes me to leave the university. So I got the letter back and I turned it in to comply with the ruling that if you anytime you dropped out, you had to get a letter from your parents, unless you were over 21. So I wasn't going to be 21 until I left. So I hopped on the train and headed for Madera. Let's see, that was April 25th. So it was May the 17th that the soldiers came with, U.S. Army soldiers came with rifles, bayonets fixed. They were all courteous, but they said, you gotta go. So that's how we had sent to Fresno Assembly Center, which is 20 miles to the south. Those of us at the Students Club, we were speculating, what were they going to do with us? And some of the more negative things is, look what Hitler's doing to the Jews. He's murdering them. They're going to do the same thing to us males. They'll line us up and machine gun us down. There are some people who really believe that, but of course I didn't believe it, but I always thought there is a possibility. So when they put us on the train and sent us to Arkansas, we pulled in on a chilly October morning, and the Jerome camp, the towers, the guard towers, the machine guns were pointed inward toward us, and they said, "See, we told you." The authorities had told us that the reason we put you in camp is to keep you safe from the public who wants to come in and harm you. But look, those machine guns are facing inward, and they're going to line all the men up. And of course, meanwhile, you couldn't carry guns and nothing, no explosives, nothing that you could take into camp. In fact, the first week we were there, we were divided into blocks, and there was a block meeting. And people that spoke up, the older people, said, this is a lousy country, this is what they're doing. There are all kinds of negative. And I got up, remember I'm 21 years old, I got up and said, look at the way the Japanese are treating the Koreans. They treat the Koreans in Japan like dirt. They don't give them good jobs. They get all the dirty jobs to do, and they're really discriminating against people of their own race. So they're not, their hands aren't clean. And boy, the older people that had been in Japan said we have an equal rights law and so forth. And my argument was, sure, the blacks in this country are the same thing. So and unfortunately, my mother was in the group that heard me say this, and the whole, especially the women in the group, after the meeting, really gave her a bad time, saying, "How could you raise a son that so doesn't know anything?" Well, my mother's argument was, let's see, that was when my son was in Hiroshima at 10 years old. He saw all this. He saw how the Koreans were mistreated, and that's why he knows. And oh, my poor mother caught it right and left. And even 3 years later, I volunteered for the U.S. Army, and I went back to camp, and my mother told my mother, and she chewed me out right and left. She says, if you get drafted, you gotta go, but you're baka. Baka means stupid in Japanese, and she called me out baka for volunteering. Well, Dad never took sides with me. I think he secretly agreed with me volunteering and this sort of thing. But my mother, as I mentioned, was quite outspoken, and I think she may have playing a game. You know, she's showing, because we had barracks, the tops were open, the seating was open, and she was quite loud when she said these things. She wants to let people know that she's reprimanding me for volunteering, see, because the people that left in the camps were, we were allowed to go out. A lot of them were going out, but we stayed mainly because, well, I'm not sure whether it's mainly, but the reason they gave for staying is because my youngest sister was only 4 years old, and how is she going to survive being outside if we go out, because we were not allowed to go back to California or Oregon or Washington, and therefore Dad decided he's going to stay until the end, because the Supreme Court was in session, and they were, the rumors were that they would say that you can't keep them in camp, and that's true. The final decision was you can't keep them in camp without due process and all the legal. So they were allowed. I was in the service in 1945 beginning. So even before the war ended, they were allowed to leave camp if they wanted. Well, I'd like to have them know about the basic camp experience, and they hopefully they will not do the injustice that they did us to the other racial or religious or whatever groups. They should think carefully without due process of law. So they should not do a mass evacuation of people just based on pure religion or race or whatever.
I hope that you will join us live on April 10th and 11th. We have 6 sessions planned, and I really encourage you, if you can, to watch live so that you can actually engage with the moderators and the panelists in the Q&A. So thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the programming.